Very cool. Third show this week. We have Rob Jennings on today. Rob, how you doing today?
Awesome, man. How are you?
I'm really well. Where are you calling in from today?
I'm at work, Clyde High School.
Okay, awesome. Clyde High School. I know that place really well. Um, and that plays a big part in your wrestling story too, right?
Oh,
Clyde?
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
So let's start there. Where does your wrestling story start? How old were you? Do you remember?
Yeah, actually, I do. I can remember the first time I went to a biddy practice. I was 5 years old and in kindergarten. Clyde did not have a biddy program at that time. We were talking like 1985, 1986 in there. And so we went to the Fremont YMCA, and that was one of the first places around that even had it. So I went with a couple buddies and went over and got my butt whipped quite a bit and wasn't quite sure, wrestled in one tournament that year, didn't get any wins, but got second place trophy by to the finals, which was fun. So, and then Clyde started their biddy program the following year. So, very fortunate to be one of the youngest guys that started in that program. And then, coming through and having the success looking back, it was such a special time in the school's history.
Yeah. Hey, do you remember what tournament that was?
It was West Jefferson tournament. Yeah.
Really? You traveled
For
down to
anybody
West?
watching. Yeah, we did. For anybody watching this in the Central District, you may remember the name Branham and Andy, Mike Branham, Roger Branham, Casey Branham. Roger's my uncle. He married my Aunt Judy. So growing up with those guys. So actually, Mike Branham, who was a state champ for West Jeff, ref the match that I got beat by Doug Hess, who was also then eventually a state champ I got tech falled by Doug Hess in the finals of the West Jeff tournament.
Yeah, West Jeff, they're D3 now, I think, in wrestling. Yeah, they're tough program down there.
Absolutely, yes. Sometimes.
So Clyde, so you like 86, I think, then that would make it when Clyde started their BD club.
Yeah, 86, 87. A guy by the name of Doug Fields was here, and he was football coach, but he wanted the wrestling program to be good too, and he had a lot of influence in it. And then you had the whole mod squad that I know you're real familiar with from back in the day that ran the biddy program, and we were able to have all the success that we were able to have. It was pretty cool.
That he had a lot of foresight there about getting, you said he's a football coach and then getting the wrestling program that really panned out well in the long run.
Yes, and it didn't take long either. It's crazy how fast those results started coming.
Yeah. So then the club starts. I mean, does it seem like from the outside? Because I know where this story is going. Like you guys were kicking butt. So just tell me about those early years.
We saw the paw guys, right? And then it was a battle.
Nah, I don't know. I mean, it's pretty cool when you talk about the start of your story, because I know I'm gonna skip over someone, but probably like East Toledo was probably the next closest Beatty club to you from the West, and then in Sandusky, I think Paw Club started in '85. I want to say
around that same time. Yeah, we were right on the heels.
Yeah, because Paw Club and Clyde were just beating each other up all the time. So,
correct.
Who are some of your training partners in the early years?
Oh man, good golly! I know your cousin Jared and I have had some awesome conversations about this.
That's what I want to hear.
Years. Yeah, throwing out names of guys that then didn't even finish wrestling throughout high school. Lance Knopfs was a big one. I still got a picture of who's now my brother-in-law, Corey Coe, who was a very, very good wrestler. Player. He's standing on the third place line, and Rob Smith's on the second place line. A couple of names for people who are familiar with the area. And they're both looking up at me, and I got first. And both those guys ended up being way better than me. So I like to pull that picture out every once in a while when Corey and his family are home.
That's awesome. I have a biddy picture, and I think I'm in second place, and my cousin Drew's in third place. And I like to show him that one just because I'm like, at one point I beat someone who beat you, but like at one point, I don't know.
Correct.
That's all I got to hang on to.
Very little. I'm the same way.
Well, you're way too modest. But yeah, I mean, let's talk about that squad that you guys had coming into junior high and then high school, and just the terror you guys unleashed on the SBC.
Yeah, I guess, looking back on it, and I can see it happening. You see it happen now in the different phases with kids, like what Edison's got going on over there right now. And when you have that group of parents who's dedicated and just packs kids in vans and drives them all over the country, basically. I mean, we had a lot of Bellevue guys even that traveled with us. I know the Matt Coleman's, or excuse me, Anthony Coleman's and Matt DiPolo, and, you know, Anthony, like all those guys. Courtney DeLuca, you know, throwing some names out there that, you know, all those guys, whoever wanted to go, we packed them in and we took them, and, you know, we had a very group of dedicated parents. We stayed the night. Everybody trusted, you know, parents to take kids everywhere. But then, I mean, you look around and you see that still happening today, and that's where all that success, I think, was definitely fed from. But yeah, going into junior high, my dad always helped at the junior high level, so I was like one of the managers, and so I got to hang out with all the older guys and see their success and look up to them, you know, and want to be those guys. And just as you said, you know, going into the SBC, I'll never forget the shirts your dad had made up. I think it was his last year at St. Mary's, and on the back it had all the accomplishments that they had throughout his 20-some years as coach. And it struck me because they had more state championships than they had SBC championships. And it really made me realize what we got to grow up with and how cool our area was and stuff like that. So I know I don't know if I answered your whole question there, but just to touch on that a little bit.
No, but I hadn't even thought about the SBC was a meat grinder, man. I mean, it is brutal. And then even no matter what division you were in, you're in the SBC, then your sectional, it wasn't, I mean, your district was you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And if any of our schools were maybe like 15 miles more east, it would be even worse because then you would, you know. Yeah. So
well, then we always combined with the central district, so we had to wrestle the Columbus guys and, you know, the Marion Franklins and those guys, and now we have more of now we go more east. I think a little bit more today.
All right. Well, cool. So tell me about some of your accomplishments then at Clyde and everything before we get into what you're doing now.
Well, again, you know, my freshman year in high school, I had some battles in junior high with some guys too. I got to go back and forth with Kevin Fabian a little bit, you know, just throw some more names out there.
He was a monster. Carver, right?
Kevin, yeah. I got lucky and beat Kevin my 7th grade year when he was in 8th grade in junior high SBC finals in a barn burner of a match, 7-6. Place was going nuts. That's one of my all-time favorite memories. Just
really. And
then you take that and you build on it. And my freshman year in high school, we were state. That was the year that Clyde was state champs, and my season had a very bitter ending with how districts finished out, and I didn't accomplish my goals, but. And then learned that I needed to put a little more work in after my sophomore year too. So, and going into my junior and senior year, you know, we had a chance to come back again and have all that success. And I got to be one of the leaders, having seen those guys when I was a freshman, you know, go out and do what they did. So to take what I learned and then apply it, I think then helped me along after high school too, then just with everything that I needed to do. And then all the years that I coached as well.
Yeah, you said something really cool there that sparked a memory for me is St. Mary's. We used to have a lot of people come, and because we had a lot of people, we were always up in nosebleed section. You know, some of us figured out the system and could sneak down and get into single seats, but sure. In the finals, you're in your seats, you know. And I know it was the weirdest thing for me to see St. Mary's cheer for Clyde at the state tournament, because we were always so I mean, it was the crowds, it was intense, but it was. Then I learned when you get down to the state tournament, it's all just SBC pride, and you cheer on everyone and you go nuts. And when you got
just Northwest Ohio, man, it's awesome.
But I mean, especially for the conference, it's like these are the guys that, you know, I've been watching people wrestle against all year, and it's been like, oh, they're our rivals, and now it's like, cool, like let's go nuts for Clyde. I mean, I remember that; it was awesome.
Oh, absolutely, man, and just the huge cheering sections up in the stands, and I mean, even like the Dayton news people coming down and talking to all the people from Podunk, middle of nowhere, you know what I mean? Like trying to find out how all these people from where's Clyde, Ohio, stuff like that. So
that's awesome. So after high school, what'd you go on to do?
I went to Bowling Green. Yeah, I went to Bowling Green and majored in education. That's what I'm here doing now. And I coached a little bit at Otsego High School with a guy named Scott Bilo, who actually just retired from coaching, wrestling anyways. He's still the offensive coordinator for the football team over there, but he was my college roommate. I just met him my uncle taught at Otsego. And so, being young, still wanting to be involved, I said, hey, can you talk to the coach, see if I can just come up and roll around with the guys a little bit? And, I met some of the other guys and some of the coaches, and they wanted me to come up and help a little bit. So I volunteered up there for a couple of years. And then Coach Carroll offered me a job as an assistant coach at Clyde, which was huge, man. Like they were still rolling. And so to come back, and it's always good to be home. So I was a college guy at BG, but I was able to come back a couple days a week and roll around with the guys and really build those rapports with some of the better guys we've had come through, the TC Huffmans, the JR Izaguirres, Jonathan Taylor's, it was a really cool time. Bobby Blackburn, those guys were fun to be around as being just a little bit older than them. And they listened. That was awesome. They were coachable. And, so I was able to do that for a couple of years. And then as I went through college, and then the following year after coaching at Clyde, actually I got the opportunity to be Chad Long's assistant at Lakota for one season. And I got to, after working with Dale Carroll, who was a great mentor for me, not just as a coach, but then, what to do and what not to do with the rules. He taught me a lot about wrestling and how to run a program. And so I went with Chad then over to Lakota for a year, and we had a lot of success. It was a fun year. And then after graduation, had wrestling job at Western Reserve High School. Again, been very fortunate to coach some awesome, very talented dudes over the course of my coaching career, and then got the Clyde job. So, which again, then we were able to have a lot of success, man. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Chad's at Fremont Ross now, isn't he? Head football coach there, Chad Long?
Head football coach at Fremont Ross. Yeah, he actually still helps out a little bit wrestling over at Tiffin the last couple of years. I think he has been. Okay. Tiffin Columbia. They got a real good program right now.
Yeah, that what you said about Dale, like bringing you on, that says a lot about you as a young adult when you're a wrestler too. Like you don't just ask any person that wrestled for you before to, hey, you want to coach the next generation of the program I've been over for more than 2 decades, right? So like that says a lot about you and what he saw in you, right? I mean, you have to agree.
Yeah, no, it was an awesome compliment. I know that he had always told me that I was one of the few people that he would like to see run the program someday, and I did. I took that as an awesome compliment, because I mean he could have just said that to anybody, but I felt like it was sincere when he said it to me.
I mean, he could have.
And I know he vouched for me when I did get the job too, so that helped a lot too.
Awesome. So how'd you start officiating, and when did that start?
Well, after getting the job at Clyde, my wife and I had just gotten married. She got a job at the Bellevue Hospital, and I got the job at Clyde, so it actually worked out perfect. And then, of course, children came along, and those children were females, not males, and so that made it a little bit more difficult for practice time and stuff like that. So I was gone at the tournaments all weekend. I mean, I wasn't going to cheat the kids that were on the team. My job was to coach them. And after a year or two, I felt like I was cheating the kids at home, which wasn't fair because that was my family. So I made the decision to resign, and I still wanted to be involved. I didn't know how. And officiating was always something that kind of piqued my interest just because of the challenge of it. And so I thought, well, if I can set my own schedule and, still be involved and help kids and help the sport, then I want to be part of it. My other goal then obviously was to be as good as possible at it, but to see the state tournament from all aspects, like as a competitor, as a coach, and then also as an official, I think it would be a very cool experience. I'm sure there's probably a lot of dudes out there that have done it, but I just think for me, that was kind of one of the things that pushed me into it.
Okay. Awesome. So do you remember what year that was?
The last year I coached was 2014. So my first year officiating would have been 2015.
Okay. So this is your 6th season then.
This would be year 7, I think.
7. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So that's what you said there is, I'm hearing that theme, and I'm hoping that people are noticing this pattern, that your wrestling life doesn't have to end after competing or after coaching. Like, officiating is a great way to be involved with the sport, meet people, and then for me to get to hear people's stories that that I've known and known for this for a long time. This seems to be a perfect solution for a lot of people. What would you say to someone that's like their careers, let's say their wrestling career, their competitive career's over, so they could be leaving high school as a senior, they could be wrapping up their college career. It doesn't look like they're going to wrestle in college, doesn't look like they're going to wrestle at the senior level or anything like that. What would your pitch be to them to consider becoming an official?
Be honest with you, man, you can set your own schedule. If you want to take a weekend off and go with the family, or hang out with buddies, you can do that. Or even as a young college kid, I mean, if you ref one tournament a weekend, which is a biddy tournament on Sunday, for those have really shortened up. They're not like they used to be when we were kids, where you're there until 8:00 at night, man. Wrestling hopefully before midnight sometimes. And so those things go pretty quick. But I mean, that's $120 cash in your pocket a lot of those days, which is spending money for the week. So even if you just did that or did junior high tournaments and stuff like that, plus they've been on the mat recently. They know the rules. They know the funk. They know the spaghetti scrambles and that other stuff that if you haven't followed it or you haven't wrestled recently, those are hard things to call. And they can kind of anticipate a little bit better. So I feel like they have that familiarity with it, a little bit more so than some of the guys who have been on the mat for a very long time. And so I think that can be an advantage for them too, and just knowing what, being able to anticipate a little bit more maybe than some of the guys who haven't been around as long.
Awesome, cool. Yeah, I mean, and even that's a good point, because with biddy wrestling is tough to officiate, because a lot of the mechanics, at least from the limited I know, is predicting where the wrestlers are going to go, so you can be in the right position to make the calls and see the things that you need to see. There's no predicting anything in biddy wrestling. It's you're swiping back points for one kid, and then you're swiping back, so it's a good place to cut your teeth.
Yes, and I think even sometimes in biddy, you can get the mismatches a little bit more. And then in junior high, that's where you really start to see some, and you forget how flexible kids are.
Oh yeah.
I don't do biddy junior high tournaments anymore. I do mostly varsity stuff. So, so then when I go down there, I'm calling potentially dangerous, and the kid's arm just flings right back to where it was before or whatever. And I'm like, I guess he's in much danger, but in my head, I'm thinking, man, it looks like it might get ripped off.
Yeah. And your job's to keep everyone safe there. So,
correct.
I remember officiating the SBC junior high tournament when I was in college, and it was the finals, and I stopped a move. A kid was going into criteria, but he scissored the head before going in, so I stopped it. He needed those back points to win the match. Stopped it. St. Mary's. It was Rick Bellamy. Coach Bellamy calls me over to the table, and this was going to win them the tournament. This was their last match. If they won this, it won them the tournament. And I'm like, it's an illegal move. Yeah, I'm sorry. What do you want me to do? And that was when I was like, man, this is harder than I thought. Than I thought. It's a lot. So,
and I think honestly, in what you're explaining there too, you bring up a good point. And in my job, I deal with people every day, all day. And you see, I think a lot of the officials, I think that people put up on a little bit of a higher level and think are a little bit better. A lot of those guys deal with people every day. They're police officers, they're state troopers. They work in banks. You know what I mean? They do things where they have that experience. And I think that can benefit you a lot, especially when you're at the table talking to coaches.
That's no one's ever brought that up. That's a really good point. I'm always talking about how being a coach or being an official can help you be a coach, or being a former coach or wrestler can help you be an official, but dealing with people is a big part of it. Yeah.
Yes.
Now I'm going to think about that.
And I teach psychology too. So I find this stuff fascinating. I really do. Just how sometimes people the fans are going to remember your call last week, right? Or the coaches or the wrestler or whoever. And I'll be honest, you make so many calls throughout the course of a weekend. Every week when I walk into a tournament and I kind of get, somebody doesn't say hello, or, like you can, they got to give you that look a little bit, and you have to think to yourself, what did I do? Like, I'm trying to run back. Oh man, that stalling call or whatever it was, like, I got you. So now you can start that conversation even as the official and say, hey, that stalling call last week, man, what did you think about that? You know what I mean? And kind of just get that little bit of feedback even.
Yeah.
So it is kind of funny though.
You like to dive into that stuff in there, huh? see where it goes.
Absolutely. Because when you're coaching, I feel like you're colorblind. You see everything through your team's colors, and you're biased. So I can only have the perception in my mind of what I see. Well, my perception of that call is terrible because my guy didn't do that when the other side, it's like a flag get thrown in a football game, man. One side's cheering, the other side's booing it. And so to take that step back as the official and be colorblind and try to watch both guys is very difficult. because as the coach, I watch my guy wrestle 50 times a year. I know what he's going to do. I see him every day in practice. I watch him on the mat. So I'm watching the official and I'm watching the opponent because I'm trying to see if the official messed up so I can tell him, or I'm watching the opponent so I can give my guy an advantage and tell him what to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, I'm never really watching my guy. And as the official, you have to take that step back and try to not miss anything. And so the challenge of it, I really enjoy the challenge of it.
Well, that's funny that you say that, the part about you can go and start the conversation and stuff, because not exactly what you described, but I had that experience with you actually at the Lakota junior high tournament this last year.
Right.
I was upset about a call. I think I was being okay. I mean, I only had 3 kids on my team, so it wasn't like we were going to win the tournament, and I went up to you and I was like, hey, this is the situation. What do you think? And what I thought was really cool how you answered it. You're like, well, I didn't see it. And you're like, but what you're describing, but you played it cool. But
so I wasn't the official on the mat. I was and you just questioned about something else that had happened throughout the day.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then you sat there and we talked through it, and then I was like, I appreciate that, and actually you calmed me down a little bit, and I was able to pull it together.
Awesome.
Yeah. But you're right about being colorblind, only seeing your team. A lot of with the emotion, right? Like you're just emotionally invested in those kids, and as an official, you can't be. I mean, why would you be, right?
Official, you can't take it personal because that guy's fighting for his kid.
Yeah.
I mean, they're doing their best. They're doing their job. I'm doing my job. We're all doing our best job. Sometimes we're not going to do our job real well. Sometimes you're going to be great at it, and the other side's still going to think you didn't do it real well. So part of the job, though.
Awesome. What are some of your so far in the 7 years you've been doing it? What are some of your the moments that stand out, or memories, or things that you think were really cool? You're like, oh man, I'm glad I got to be at that tournament or officiate.
Yeah, there's actually been quite a few, man. I've had some awesome officials take me under their wing a little bit with Morgan Stanley and Laren Weichel and Matt Majoy and Mike Majoy and those guys.
That's a great group of dudes right there.
It's a great group of dudes, man. And they've gotten me into some big tournaments. And Mr. Vreeland and Mr. Crosby, those guys have been excellent in directing you and giving constructive criticism. And I've appreciated that. So I guess the highlight, I got to do the state duels my 5th year of officiating, man, down in Columbus at the Shot. And I had the first round match between St. Paris Graham and London. And after the match, I felt like I nailed it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sure I messed some stuff up. I'm sure there were things, but dude, I got to be on the stage kind of and get that experience. And I really felt like I did well. And then my evaluations came back and they kind of said the same thing. So that's definitely been the highlight so far. Just getting down there and getting that experience, getting out there in front of those bigger names. And we get nervous just like the kids do,
I'm sure.
And I'm out there and the last thing I want anybody to do is remember me. That's the
last
thing I wanted.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to insert yourself into the match. You're just there to make sure that everything goes correctly, right? That's awesome. That's a big step towards your ultimate goal, right?
Correct. Yeah. Now the individual tournament, hopefully soon. And but a couple matches, I guess, that stick out would be I was fortunate enough to have the Hernandez and Bellevue guy just went to Cornell in the SBC final.
Gosh, he's a monster too. I should know his name.
Yeah. Ended up wrestling the Miller kid in the SBC finals then. Either way, I had that finals match a couple years ago, and that ended up 6-5 back and forth. It was a barn burner. There was a really close call in there, and I was waiting for the coach to go to the table, and it didn't happen. And so I almost wanted him to, so I could talk to my assistant to see if he had what I had, But once everything kept going, it wasn't a big deal. But those are things, even as you're in the middle of officiating a match, that do sometimes happen. I mean, you're like, oh man, I'd love to ask somebody if they think I'm right,
Yeah.
But yeah, so a couple matches like that, I guess. But just some of the bigger stuff, getting to see some of the teams and programs that that go out and win, and it's fun to get in front of those guys and to listen to hey, tell me. I'm more than happy for somebody to tell me how I can improve because you always want to get better. Yeah,
feedback done right is welcome, right? But don't scream at me in the center of the mat.
Yep.
Cool. So one of the common themes in the talks I'm getting to have with officials is of how important the pre-match meeting is with the teams and coaches and stuff. Can you kind of talk us through kind of what your goal is when you go into that pre-match meeting and kind of what you say and why maybe?
Sure, absolutely. And I mean, I'm going to harp on the things that I'm going to stress, which action, stay in the middle. I mean, the same things that everybody else does. But the biggest thing I think is, you've got this, again, going back to the psychology thing a little bit, you've got this gap between perception and reality. So when I show up with the stripes on, I'm automatically enemy for a lot of the people that walk in that gym, whether it's the wrestler or anybody else, right? And so you have to be able to make it come. I'm here to help. I'm here to help. I'm here to facilitate. I'm here to blow the whistle. I'm going to call the rules as I see it. Might not be exactly how you see it, but if you go back to the center and you keep getting set, you keep wrestling hard, we're all human beings. We're all going to like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's not going to change any calls, but hey, you're the aggressor. So on that 50-50 call, can that help you get the takedown on the edge if you've been the aggressor? Those things come into play. There's a lot of that really do come into play. Not that you still don't have to have your toes in or something like that.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. And so, you try to get that message across that I'm here to help. I'm not here for anybody to dislike. Somebody's going to, but that wasn't my point of coming here. And so I think that message, trying to make yourself a person rather than a guy wearing stripes is hard because you have such a short period of time to do it. But you have to kind of close that gap a little bit between that perception and reality.
That's brilliant, man, because that's what we're trying to do with this show, is try to show the human side of officials, because it's a tough job. Not only everything that you have to know, because I would venture to guess that the majority of wrestling coaches probably don't know the rule book as well as they think they do. And that's your shield, right? You have to know that, or your armor. Then you have to know mechanics, and then you have to have thick skin and put up with other people questioning your calls, and they probably don't know the rules as well as you. But that goes back to adversarial role. You said the most of the time when wrestlers come into contact with an official, they're officiating my match, and in their head, perception versus reality, right? This could be their perception. Yep. This is the guy that could cost me the match. And again, I've said that now 3 times and I need to stop saying it, but that's not true, because if you just keep scoring points, there's, and don't break any rules, you're going to win.
Absolutely.
But so I guess my question is, other than trying to tell the stories of officials and things like that, do you have any ideas or any things that you do to try to have athletes and coaches see you outside of the competitive arena?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I really like the end of the year where you have more refs, like in districts and stuff like that, where I get to hand out the anklets behind the table.
Okay.
Because you can goof around with the kids a little bit. I mean, you can crack a joke. Some of them don't want to, so you stay away from those guys. You figure that out pretty fast. Like, I'm not here for that. I'm here to wrestle. Get away from me. But you're a human being. You can joke around a little bit. Again, I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that for a living with high school kids, and I try to not forget what it's like to be 16, 17, 18 years old. I mean, I only have my idea of what it was like to be that, but all the stresses and everything else, and just the awkward stage and everything like that you're going through, it's a tough age. And so anytime that, you can just add a little bit of, personable action to it, or in between rounds and stuff like that. You know what I mean? If you to keep your antenna down and your rabbit ears down and stuff like that and not hear those things. But if you did hear something, like I said, I'll go up to the coach and say, hey, I heard you yelling from the side over there. I just wondered what you thought you saw, because I'd like to explain to you what I called. And most of the time they're willing to listen. You have a great conversation. Other times they don't want to, and that's fine. You just leave it be. But I think being more proactive in having those conversations. But again, a lot of that comes back to being comfortable talking to people too.
Cool. Do you get a lot of coaches that invite you in, like, to their room at the beginning of the year to go over points of emphasis or anything like that? Is that something that you get to do?
No. I'll be honest with you. I don't get invited to. I do very many duels or tries or anything like that. Like, I think a lot of times they've been hiring the same people every year for a long time, because you see so fewer new officials, and so those are who the contracts go out to every year. So no, actually, that isn't something that I've been asked to do.
Okay. But if you were asked, you would do it? If it wasn't?
I would love to. I mean,
okay.
It makes you more of a person. Like, I've gone to even to Bellevue and ref their wrestle-offs. I think not last year, year before, they had 2 guys that were neck and neck for sectionals. You know what I mean? And it went best of 3, and it came down to the ultimate overtime, and a kid figure 4'd the body, and I ended the match. And then the winner of that wrestle off ended up in the go to state match 2 weeks later at districts.
Wow, that coach is genius for bringing an official in when you have that tight of a wrestle off. I you know what I mean? Take it off of me.
Yeah.
Like,
and I would love to, as a coach. I was again fortunate enough as a wrestler and an assistant coach for Coach Carroll to teach us. Coach Carroll knew the rule book inside and out, as your dad did. And that was what made that rivalry. That was one of the many things that made that rivalry so awesome, dude. And in that, they taught their wrestlers the rules. And I think so many times the kids aren't aware of what's being called. And the coach then, if the coach gets upset, the kids and the fans are automatically upset because the coach knows in their mind. That's the perception of the wrestler and the fan.
Yep.
And so I would love to see more coaches get their officiating license. They don't have to use it, or at least just go to the meetings. I mean, if you've got questions, go to the meetings and have those discussions. But I know Coach Carroll and your dad went to just about every officiating meeting, and they had questions and they wanted answers and they wanted to know what the rule changes were. And when you can get that explanation from them, it can clear it up a lot more, and we could all be on the same level, same page, I think, more than we are today.
Yeah, I think they had different motivations, though. Dale probably genuinely wanted to know the rules, and Jude, my dad, probably wanted to learn how he could bend them. You know, just that guy.
I think that was 6 of one, half dozen of another for both of us.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I wasn't gonna say that about Dale, but
I think they were playing the same game. So
yeah.
No worries. Again, that's what made the rivalry so awesome.
Yeah, they were playing chess, and they were playing chess with Coach Bergman, and everyone else was playing checkers at the time. So you said that it could help coach. Knowing the rules could help a coach. Duh, obvious. By being having a license. What do you think are some things that we could do to get more coaches to consider doing that? Now, that won't obviously help us with the official shortage of the officials we need to officiate matches, but getting more people saying, "Hey, I have my license," can't hurt, right? So think about back over 7 years ago when you were getting your license. The process is, I think it's a little antiquated right nowadays, because I think you could do a lot of that online. You obviously would have to do your mechanics and do your tournament with your mentor or whatever to get your license. But it just seems like going somewhere for 8 weeks for 2 hours. You know what I mean? And maybe that's
absolutely. Well, and especially coming from somebody like you who's been around and knew the rules and stuff like that. So there are some other options out there. I actually went down and took Fred Feeney's class, the 1 weekend deal down in Columbus.
Yep.
And that's how I got my license. So I think for me, that was extremely beneficial because I needed a crash course.
Yep.
I think some people need the 8 weeks. I think even some of the people that were in that class could have used a lot more than that 1 weekend. But their ceiling might not, it's going to take a little bit longer to reach their potential probably. Mm-hmm. So there are some options out there, but yeah, like you're saying, I think that a lot of this is stuff that there could be other ways to work around it.
Yeah.
And again, I'm hoping to someday have a great idea. I've been working on it for 41 years now. So
yeah, well, I think we all have. I think we all have great ideas. We just don't have the money to waste on these great ideas, right?
Or even access them.
Yeah. What are so here's the other thing I wanted to throw out at you again. So this is an idea, and I think that this is something I'm just bouncing off officials. I bounced it off of Matt Soroshinsky last night. What about, I think one of the easier ways to get new officials would be having officials come in near the end of the year, maybe after sectionals or districts, and talk to the outgoing seniors about
absolutely. Even at tournaments, like if you have an official that's willing to just speak to the crowd real fast before the tournament starts or something like that.
That would be awesome.
But I mean, to find some ambassadors that are a people person, are willing to talk, to set up some sort of clinic, you know what I mean? Some traveling clinic. I mean, they have all these wrestling clinics that travel around. Could you do some sort of camp, officials camp even, or something like that? I mean, yeah, I would think that if we can put our heads together as a group, I mean, free enterprise is a great thing. So I think we might be able to come up with some pretty good ideas. And I think what you guys are doing is awesome, dude. I really do, because I think that's the beginning of it. You by talking to us and talking to all those other guys who've had all these awesome experiences, you can get more ideas, and we've got more ideas on the table because otherwise we're not communicating.
Yeah, and I feel like that's a major gap, because the only time the officials, well, for the majority, right, the only time the officials and the coaches get to talk is in competition season.
Yep.
So having, even if it's one-way communication, they can take in some information, and now they'll be like, oh, that's Rob. He does this, this, and this. He's not just here to make me lose at 125 or whatever the weight class is this year. So we've talked about memories. We've talked about Clyde. We've talked a little bit about officiating and stuff. So how, I want to talk about your psychology, because you brought it up a couple of times. So does that play a major role in your officiating? You think the sociology and psychology stuff, you find yourself thinking about what makes people tick and what makes them not tick?
No, man, seriously, all the time. And I use examples of it in here too. I mean, when you're going through the whole process of wrestling and all that stuff, you think it's the end all be all and winning is everything. And now I'll use your cousin Jared as an example. He's got four plaques hanging on the wall, you know what I mean, from those titles. But when you're done and you walk down the street next year, you're a dude. You're a dude walking down the street. You know what I mean? Unless you're wearing those numbers around, which I hope nobody is. Yeah. You're just a dude walking down the street. And so we're all, again, on that level playing field. So what are you going to do with it? You know what I mean? So I think so many people are afraid of that failure. So the psychology of it, how can we get young people to not be afraid to fail and give everything they've got? You can coach, you can teach forever, but how many kids are you going to get that have the heart and the talent put together, right? Yeah. I mean, you could do it forever and not get one. And some of us were fortunate enough to get a whole bunch of those guys. And some of them you like to be able to combine, you know what I mean? So I guess just seeing that stuff, and then I can bring it into class and build that rapport even with my students. I think that's the best part of my job.
That's awesome. Yeah, that fear of failure, right? Like fear's a good thing. It's kept us alive for millions of years, right? From an evolutionary standpoint, but it can be unhealthy as well.
Right. Well, I was one of those kids that needed that. I was one of those wrestlers that, and that was one of the things I learned again from Coach Carroll. Some people everybody responds to things a little bit different. You can't treat every kid the exact same. And so what pushes his buttons? I find that stuff pretty fascinating.
Awesome. With the upcoming season coming, do you have any tournaments or things that you're looking forward to that you're excited about doing?
Yeah. Again, hopefully we can have a little bit more of a normal season this year. I know last year I was local quite a bit. It was awesome because I didn't have to drive real far, but did a lot of stuff at Norwalk, did a lot of stuff at Clyde. You saw a lot of the same teams because people weren't traveling around and trying to stay in their areas. So I'm hoping for some normalcy. I think that with they being able to do it last year, I'm hoping that can kind of work itself out this year as well. But yeah, I'm going to be working with the OAC a little bit this year. I was asked to be one of their head officials at some of the events, and get to organize and answer questions from parents and do just what we just talked about. Kind of work with people a little bit. So that's something new that I'm doing this year. I'm really looking forward to.
Oh, cool. Well, now I'm looking forward to it too, because I'll be at most of those events too, so we'll get to hang out too. Cool. And then I can guilt you into being on the show again. I'm confident you give me a couple of weekends, I can wear you down. Yeah, I think what you said is hopefully, we have a little bit more normalcy and we get to have a season. There's a lot of talk going on right now. Last year, the big message I had for our kids is like, guys, we get to wrestle. And some of you won't get to wrestle this week because you'll have to quarantine. But when you get to wrestle, you just have to be thankful and you have to make the most of it. Right. Which there's a hot topic going on, just came out yesterday. I don't know if you saw it, but the Beast of the East this year, all wrestlers are required to wear masks.
Okay. No, wow. I hadn't seen that yet. Huh? Yeah. I'm actually a golf coach here at Clyde too. So we've been a little busy in our season, but I'll get wrestling here pretty soon, October.
Yeah. So that's okay. How's the golf team doing?
10-2, baby.
Oh yeah. Sweet.
Yeah. We got to get over the hump against Norwalk, but fingers crossed.
That's your rival. What place are you guys in the conference right now?
We're in second place. Yeah, they beat us twice. They got one loss. We have two. So if we can hold serve, and then we got to win the league tournament to win the league, but we still got a shot. So. All
right, now let's stay tuned. Back to face masks. No, someone said to me, they're like, man, this is, ridiculous. And I, to some extent, I kind of agree. Right. But it also, it's like, what is it going to take for us to be able to wrestle again? If this is what it takes, I guess that's what we have to do. I believe Michigan wrestled the whole year last year with masks.
That was the rumor. Yeah, that was what I had heard. I think Wisconsin might have been another state that I had heard.
Oh, I'll have to find out about that because I have some ties there. But yeah, it's really interesting. I guess like you start the match with the mask on, and then if it comes off, it's kind of like headgear. The action continues, and when the action breaks, mask back up and go. So it's still probably a real big disturbance.
Kind of like hairnet, like hairnet.
Yeah, but I would imagine cross faces take masks off pretty quickly.
Yeah, and just thinking back to wrestling, like I can't imagine. You were already constricted enough. I feel bad for the kids that wear mouthpieces. Now you got a mouthpiece and braces and the mask. Like, holy crap, dude! But
it's not an ideal situation.
No, it is not. Go on. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I mean, but I mean, if that's what it takes, if some sacrifice, right? We're wrestlers. We're familiar with sacrifice.
Yeah.
We can do it.
I don't want to wear a mask at school either, but if that's what it takes for us to be here, then I'll put this stinking thing on and move on because I
got you. That was a hot topic. I knew it was going to be a heated one. So OAC, are you doing? Do you know which events you're doing? Which ones?
I worked out some dates with Jared a little bit. I'd have to open up.
You mean Youngstown? Do you think?
Again, I worked around the day. I didn't schedule tournaments that I'm reffing on those weekends, so
gotcha. Cool.
I just worked around those dates. So
awesome.
I think until the end of the season, we had a cruise scheduled for all this COVID stuff. So I actually was supposed to do an individual state tournament 2 years ago.
Really?
Yeah, and I turned it down because we were going on a cruise. So that would have been considered my off year then. So then the next year I would have been eligible for it again, which would have been last year. But last year they had all of they pretty much had the guys who didn't get to do it the year before when it was canceled go down last year. So, but anyway, so we're going on a cruise at the end of the year. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to make the end state stuff, but I think I'll be at pretty much everything throughout the season.
So next year would be your year that you're eligible again for.
Well, I believe it should be this year.
This year.
That I'm eligible.
Well,
I took off. You're 2 on, 1 off. So the year that I took off would have been considered 2 years ago.
Well, maybe it's this year.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. And you wouldn't want it last year anyhow in a high school gym. You want your experience to be at
first
the
time would be a lot more fun to go down to the big show.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
I mean, it was cool. It was different. I got to be at the D3 one, but it wasn't.
Glad they did. Like you said, if that's what we have to do this, then that's what we'll do. That's absolutely correct.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you taking time to do this show. I know I've rescheduled on you a couple of times because of technical difficulties. So I appreciate you being flexible there. Looking forward to seeing you this season, and hopefully we can talk again, and I can have you on with some other ideas when we get closer to the season. Maybe there's some things we can do. I would love to.
Sure. Hey, you care if I tell one more quick story real fast?
Oh yeah. This is your time, man.
Hey, I got this picture here. This is one of my favorite pictures, and some people will recognize it, some people won't. But hold it up there a little bit.
Yeah.
That was one of the best experiences that I've had, and that's Jacob Bubba Andrews. He was one of the kids that died in the Clyde Cancer Cluster, and that was Chris Moore, who won state title for us here at Clyde when I was coaching here. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the OHSAA. And I know Lyle Smith had a lot to do with that, not around to hear the thank yous today, Mr. Vreeland. But the officials and the people down there in Columbus at the Schottenstein Center, the OHSA hooked us up with getting us to be able to, 3 hours before that, Bubba was in a hospital down at Ohio State University, and they weren't letting him go. And he said, I'm going to the tournament. And in that 3 hours, those people worked magic, man, to get him down on the floor, and then to get us up to take that picture and stuff. They don't do that. And so I just wanted to make sure that I said thank you. I hadn't really had an opportunity to do that. I know it was a long time ago now, but that was an unbelievably cool experience, and one that I'll definitely never forget.
Man, I'm glad you got that in there. I got goosebumps because Bubba's memorial tournament is something we get to do every year, and that's a cool tournament. It's
yes.
to honor him, and
we still do all kinds of stuff for him, man. We just had a Bubba's Bash scramble last weekend. We get O'Carver guys. We've had Keith Witt and those guys get a team every year and come out. We got to see a Danny Michaels versus CJ Magram match on 18 T-Box last year. That was fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, dude, it was so cool. So yeah, just the support even from those guys that competed against him and stuff like that, and the respect that they had for him, and just what they did down at the OHSAA. That stuff, I'm sure they do it for other people. I'm sure that it's happened before, but for them to go above and beyond for us to have that experience, man, and then lose Bubba not too long after that, it was meant to be. I know how much it meant to his family and everybody in the community. So I just want to make sure I said thank you.
That's awesome, man. Thanks for sharing that. We're gonna definitely cut that out and get that story out there so people can hear it. Cool. Hey, appreciate it. I know you've got some psych and soch to teach. Always good catching up with you, man. Thanks for your time, and stick around for a couple minutes after I stop the recording. All right?
Sure, absolutely, man. Thanks for having me. I look forward to being on again. Hopefully, awesome. Have a good day.